ease in the making of the costume. You know, some plastic things. Or I mean, I've seen people go way out. I've seen thousands of dollars poured into Dracula out. You know, but I think Dracula by far. I've seen very few Frankensteins. I think Dracula, Jason Voorhees, The Mummy. I've seen quite a few of those, and Freddy Krueger are like the top four immediate ones that you see. You go, oh, okay, I know who that is. You know, like that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the Universal monsters go, I put Dracula above Frankenstein. Maybe because of simplicity, like you said. Maybe it's simplicity because it's easy to do. I was Dracula like 5 times for Halloween as a kid. But to me, Bela Lugosi is Dracula, and the Todd Browning version of Dracula, even though it's definitely not flawless, is kind of Dracula to me. That's the Dracula's story on film for me. Even if it's not perfect, and there are done, better things, more pure to the novel and all that shit, but, Dracula's good stuff. So I can't blame Vic at all for having Dracula on his list at number 6. Not a bad choice either, I have to say.
No, not at all. I'm very impressed. Such a good, diverse. Well, there's a few that there's definitely a theme of the Universal Monster thing going, but there's been a little diversity. But I think that just shows we're kind of all the same wavelength. I think we've been friends too long. I think that's what it is.
I think there's people out there that maybe wouldn't have, Universal Monsters in their top 10. But it's hard. It's hard to make a list like this and not have that affinity for them that we have, It's just one of those things where if you grew up loving horror, how could Universal Monsters not make your list? So, again, I've only said it a million times, but it is what it is. So, Blake, you're up next with number 6.
Number 6 was an easy one for me, and I think it's just because I enjoyed for its time, the costume work, the effects and stuff. Creature from the Black Lagoon, 1954, so we're back to the Universal Monsters again.
Yeah, you've had more diversity than we have so far because it's been just straight Universal Monsters for us. Creature from the Black Lagoon is something that doesn't get remade or anything either. You ever notice that? Like Frankenstein's been remade a million times.
I think that it will eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Rico Browning is still doing the convention circuit, if I'm not mistaken. He was the actor who played the creature in most of the scenes, and maybe even I think there was another actor that played him too, but I think he played it either in water or on land. But that makeup, that costume was just so iconic,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great movie.
Well, I think maybe because it's exclusively a Universal property, whereas you could do a million adaptations of Frankenstein and Dracula. You know what I mean? Because they're technically public domain, but not those. Well, any Dracula's public domain. The look of Frankenstein is what's owned by, or Frankenstein's monster is what's owned by Universal. Agreed? Are we on the same page on that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. So, I told you earlier, I had to give props to Vic for his number 6. And, it used to be if we had done this list 5 years ago probably, I would have had this one even higher. But my favorite Universal monster movie, and you won't hear me talk about Universal for me again on this list, I promise, is Dracula. It's my favorite Universal monster movie. Again, I played Dracula 5 times for Halloween as a kid. I've seen and heard and read all sorts of adaptations of Dracula, and to this day, Bela Lugosi's portrayal of Dracula is still my favorite. And hell, I love watching Ed Wood because of the whole thing with Bela Lugosi in the movie. It's great.
Oh, with John Landau as Bela Lugosi. Yeah.
Yes.
Bela Lugosi and Gary Oldman are 2 of my absolute favorite portrayals of Dracula. And I know that's from completely different eras. Obviously, one's 31 and the other one's 1992. But they're just aesthetically, visually charming. And the makeup work was great. The sense of tension was there. The horror was there. The thrills were there. And I think it was one of the most faithful adaptations of the Bram Stoker novel, in my opinion, was the 1931 version, and then also with the 1992 version, specifically older Dracula when Gary Oldman has the hairy paws.
Well, let me just take exception to a quote. I never drink wine, but I am drinking wine, so my apologies, Bella. But we'll just say that that's me paying homage to the man, because Bela Lugosi was awesome. But I want to hear him call Boris Karloff a cocksucker. Ed Wood, so good. That movie's awesome.
It is a great movie, and Johnny Depp again at his finest. I did want to let you know, Brett got through. He's listening. He actually made the call and called in. He's got it muted, but I did want to say thank you again, Brett, for listening, and Travis and Dick appreciate it too. If you haven't looked up his stuff, he's one of the most amazing prop makers I've ever seen. And he does gloves. He does Batman stuff. He does Marvel stuff. He does Han Solo stuff, Star Wars, all that stuff. Jason masks, one of the best. He's a good guy, a really good guy, and a really good friend, and I'm glad he's tuning in. This is his first experience with the Travis and Dick's Drunken Horror Adventures, so be gentle.
Well, we'll try to live up to our poor reputation.
Yeah.
All right, so number 5, this is another one. This is for Vic. Now, I don't know if this is universal. I don't think it is. I could be wrong. But this story is another one that's in public domain, just like Dracula and Frankenstein. So you could make this movie 1 million times and nobody would sue you. But Vic's number 5 is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So, I read this in high school. I think freshman year in high school. Miss Kalen's class, English class, I'm pretty sure. Now, the alcohol is bringing back memories. But anyway, yes, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's one of those that there's so many adaptations of it, just like Dracula, just like Frankenstein. So to be able to choose one, and I think I know which one he's talking about. I'll let him elaborate, but I'm pretty sure it was the one from like the 30s that most people know. So Vic slips in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Nothing wrong with that, man. And that's
not at all. And I really like
story.
One from the 30s and the John Malkovich version. Mary Riley is what it was called. 1995, I think, is when that one came out.
Isn't that with Julia Roberts?
Yes, it is. It's very same.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, so Vic with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It feels like it's off the wall, but it is not. It's a good one.
Wow. Well, I guess it's up to me to break the chain, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, shit. Okay, we're on number 5, right?
Yeah.
So what I picked was we went Todd Browning. You went with Todd Browning's version of Dracula. Well, I went with Todd Browning, but did not go Dracula. I went with Freaks from 1932.
Now I was going to say that was the one that he was known for after Dracula, and then I think his career kind of took a shit after that. Am I wrong?
I think things kind of slowed down for him a little bit, but I think he always carried that reputation as being the Dracula and Freaks. I think they served him pretty well to the end of his life. I mean, he did a little bit less work, but the notoriety was enough,
Yeah. I mean, you can live on that, that's for sure. So the Freaks, man, good job. I like when people throw one out of left field. I mean, it's not that far out of left field, but it's still pretty good. All right, man. Well, let's see. If we're at number 5, I guess we got to go with one of my favorites. And I tell you what, it's a goddamn travesty that we have not had this man's name mentioned yet, so I'm going to throw it out. Vincent Price, okay? Because we haven't had Vincent Price yet. The Fly. Now, he was not the main character in The Fly. He wasn't even a huge part, really, of The Fly, but he was in The Fly. So I throw out Vincent Price, and I say the story of The Fly, even the original Fly, is amazing. I think The Fly is an awesome movie and underrated, for the record. So that's my number 5. I think The Fly is really good. I wish it was still on Netflix because I watched it a few times while I was on there.
Yeah, The Fly was great. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I mean, I kind of try to stay away from Vincent Price, not because he's not any good, but because it would be too easy to fill this list with his films. Like House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, and The Abominable Dr. Fives, and, there's just so many.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Mask, what was it called? The Mask of the Red Death?
Which is amazing, yeah. Yes.
There were several of them. I've seen a lot of good Vincent Price movies, but I would only narrow it down to just a few that could make this list for me. So just because it's Vincent Price, even though I love him, I wouldn't automatically put it on there. So that's why I was like, yeah, you know what, we'll just pick the ones you like. So, yeah, The Fly gets my number 5. It's interesting because we've got Freaks at number 5 for you. we've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for me, and we've got, or for Vic, and we've got The Fly for me, and we're just like all over the place now. So we just had to work our way through the Universal monsters before we could, you know, really get into the meat of this list. And, you know, there are going to be some snubs. There's no doubt about that, because I want to get into some of my snubs after the fact, but we'll get there. All right, so number 4, and I am ashamed to admit that I actually snubbed this one. I probably shouldn't have, but I'm just not sure where I would have put it, because it's one of those, it's really good. I just don't know about the rewatch value of it, and it's got a couple of remakes, too. It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's Vic's number 4. Now, that movie spawned a lot of things, including Santa Mira for Halloween 3. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a great movie, and honestly, Vic has it at 4. That's some respect, and it's deserved too. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a great, great movie.
Oh yeah,
and
wow,
one of the best. I mean, it was. I tell you what, it's the fact that I don't have it on my list makes me sad. But again, it's one of those that just came short of getting onto my list. So number 4 for Vic, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Again, the 1970's remake's really good too. So a couple of good adaptations out there, and then there's one called Invasion, I think, with like, I want to say Nicole Kidman, and it's not the same story, but it's pretty close. There was actually a War of the Worlds growing up that I used to watch on TV. I think it came on NBC, and it reminded me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers also. I mean, it wasn't, you know, the H.G. Wells War of the Worlds story. It was a little different. I don't know if you remember it at all.
I do vaguely, yeah.
Came on right around the time Tour of Duty was on. Also, that was a Vietnam TV show. So, yep, that's what I remember it for. So that puts you at number 4 now, buddy.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and break again the chain of Universal for the moment anyway, and go with this one. I did not want to leave this one out. To me, this one, for its time, the effects were great. The actor they got to play this monster is great. I'm going to have to go to 1922, F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. I'm going to have to.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that because okay, so first let me just say I didn't have any silent films on my list. Nosferatu is a silent film. But I asked my wife earlier, who is, I would call a casual horror fan. She's more into like sci-fi fantasy stuff. So more of that aspect of things. But I asked her, you know, can you name a bunch of pre-1970s horror? You know, she started naming the Universal monsters. That was the first one she did, which makes sense because that's how our list kind of went. And then she got into movies, and she definitely threw out Nosferatu. So Nosferatu, despite the fact that it should have never even been circulated, was circulated, and it's a great fucking movie. It's just a silent movie, and I couldn't quite put it in my top 10 because of that. But, I mean, Blake, I'm glad you had it in there because at least it gets recognition here.
And also, I mean, being a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, and Brett, you know, who's still listening out there, is obviously a fan of Elm Street, too. There are certain scenes in that recall the Elm Street mystique and the Elm Street kind of formula, and obviously Wes, you know, took some inspiration from this. But the scene when, I don't know if you've seen it, Travis, but when Nosferatu's like climbing the staircase, you see his shadow on the wall, and he has these long fingernails, and it's just,
yes,
it is one of the creepiest silent film scenes I've ever seen, and it took my breath away, man. I was actually invited to play live music along with the film. They were doing a showing of it in Las Vegas a couple of weeks before my convention appearance, and I couldn't go because I couldn't hammer out my schedule. But man, that would have been amazing to play live. You know, really creepy because you've heard my music. You know I could do it, and to play something really ethereal and creepy along with such a classic and like just, you know, well-known film like that, it would have been great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would have been amazing. And, of course, you've seen Shadow of the Vampire with John Malkovich, right? I've seen that.
That's 1979?
No. Shadow of the Vampire is a more recent movie. It was like from the 90s or maybe 2000.
Oh, the 90s. I'm thinking the other one. It's got Toss Kinski, where he plays Max Schreck, which is the name of the actor who played Nosferatu, which is also the name that Christopher Walken uses in Batman Returns as that villain, Max Schreck. It's just so funny how we did that. Sorry. Damn.
All good. But you've seen the one with John Malkovich and
I have, yes, I have.